The Frame Center Podcast.
Welcome to the Frame Center Podcast. So today we're down Scott. He wasn't able to make it, but me and Elizabeth have decided we're going to push on without him, and we are lucky enough to have a staple in the South Shore art community in with us today, Jody Regan. And
Hey.
Jody, thank you for coming in. Thanks for
super
joining
excited you asked me. Thanks, Dave.
me. Well, my pleasure. Me and Jody, we kind of we've go a ways back as far as framing her paintings, but we were on the board at North River together. That was an adventure. You're still pretty involved at North River.
I'm involved as part of the festival. So Mary Curran and I have chaired the juried art in the big building at the festival for those who have been on Memorial Day weekend at North River. But I've been off the board. I was trying to think about it today. It's been a while, maybe 8 years. I think I was on for maybe 15 to 16 years, and you were on there quite a while.
Yeah, no, I was, and I think it was shortly. I mean, I think my kids got to the age where it was just like too much. At first, it was easy when they were babies,
Right.
but once they got to the age where we're running around sports, a lot of logistics. That was why I had to exit. But the Frame Center, we try to stay supportive.
Well,
I still
you
get
set
to hang
the show
it.
and
Yeah.
hang the show. Well, we did. Now most juried shows are juried online, as a lot of artists know, and North River does the same. But we used to have a jury day where all the art was brought into the building, and there were 300 to 400 pieces of art in the building.
Yep.
And I ran that day, which was an entire day. And my principal at the South Shore Charter School where I taught, and Dave's kids had been there too, she just automatically gave me that Monday off after Mother's Day. She said, "It's on my calendar, Jody. I know you're not coming."
Yeah.
So that was kind of nice. So.
Yeah. So is Mary, is she exiting from the?
So from the festival, we're still meeting as a festival committee. Mary, I know, is on the arts committee. So the arts committee over there makes the decisions about the exhibits that North River holds in the Ventress Library and at the Dolphin Gallery up in Hingham.
Yep.
So Mary's involved with that.
And I know you got a show coming up too with the
I do.
with North River. We're
So-
talking about some framing. Talking about some framing that's going to need to be done for
Yikes.
that.
So we're going to talk, I know, about my drawing a day thing. So I have a show at the Hingham Library. It's called the Dolphin Gallery, which is the large wall when you walk in the back entrance. And the show is going to be about my commitment to making art every day with a drawing.
Yep.
So I have some serious thoughts on, there'll be a lot more work than I would have in a painting show, which I think I had a show there 10 years ago with maybe 30 pieces.
Yep.
This is going to be more pieces than that. So I have very significant ideas about how to make it not look hectic,
Yep.
which as you come through the door. So yes, you and I are going to be talking about how to do that
Yep.
reasonably.
So the theme of the show is that it revolves around. No, it's a drawing a day. It's not a painting a day, or is it mixed
so
and
it's
matched?
fuzzy. So to me, when you're painting, you're also drawing.
Yeah.
The name of the show is Drawn Out.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, should we talk about my drawing a day?
Yeah. No, I mean I know the streak's going on pretty long. What are you up to? 1,000 plus?
1,800 something.
Oh, well, so we're closing in on 2,000.
Yeah, so I began this in 2017. I was a middle school math teacher for 18 years, and I retired in June. And
Congratulations.
Thank you. So teaching, which is the most fabulous job ever and the hardest job ever, harder than the software engineering jobs I had, and I loved it, but it was time to move on. It takes a lot of time and energy. So I decided to do a drawing every day for the month of October. You all know the artist Sally Dean. She said, let's do this challenge for the month.
Yep.
So I set my mind to doing just a drawing every day and posting it. I created an Instagram for that reason. And at the end of the month, after 31 days, which I did do every day, I just thought I wasn't finished. So I just kept going. And I don't have a goal, but it's become part of my routine. And I draw something or paint every day between 15 minutes to 2.5 hours or something.
Yeah.
So I haven't missed a day.
Yeah.
And my 5th anniversary is this Saturday. It'll be 5 years running. That's crazy.
That's impressive.
Time goes fast. So
yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
So even during that time, I had a knee replacement and I did not miss a day. I had like the second surgery of the day. So I was you hang around in the morning waiting till 9 o'clock till they wheel you off. So I had time to draw the nurse's station, which is back there. And
yeah. So the significance of what the subject matter you do every day, is it just like, I've scrolled through the, Jody Paints on Instagram, and is that the main place where you show your work online, or do you have a website as well?
I have a website. They're not all on there, jodyregan.com, but my Instagram is there only for that reason. So the only thing that's on it is the drawing that day, and maybe some process photos that go along with it. So Instagram and I are fans because you can curate it. I mean, for those who don't have it, look, I'm a little older than you, right? A lot of people in my generation aren't doing that. I recommend it because it's easy, and you get to only look at what you want.
Yeah.
And so I only see beautiful art every time I open it. So nothing on there is ever political or asking for money or anything. It's just a drawing every day. And I have a friend in Israel who has been in touch a couple times saying, I'm really worried when I get up in the morning it won't be there.
Yeah.
and I said, hey, I'm a human. We all expire eventually, but my plan is to do something every day. And of the 1,800 days, I would say there's only been, I'm going to be, let's say, honest. I would say out of the 1,800, there have probably only been 15 days where I really was tired, but I did it anyway.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's just part of my day.
And is it always, it's never like you're I'm going to paint like something from my mind. Is it always a drawing of like something that's happening in your life? Because like, the ones that I have over here, I'm assuming you were at Woody's that day when you decided to do those. So is it always like something that's going on? You mentioned that when you had your knee surgery, it was like the nurse's station. So is it like always something that's kind of, can you see a story of Jody's life as well if you're scrolling through those?
There is the story of Jody's life, but not all of them are live that day. So especially teaching every day, there wasn't always time to do a drawing, and I understand where my boundaries are. If I had time to do a little drawing in school, it wasn't going to ever be of any students where anybody could identify anything. I mean, just so I didn't do that. So sometimes so how many are done from life with me sitting in the situation? I'll say 45%.
Yeah.
And then the rest, maybe I'm hanging in the evening. I will Google things like pedestrians in Boston, or I've used Google Earth and said I'm going to go visit Paris, and then so I'll be above Paris with Google Earth and looking down. Oh, there's a park, and just zoom in and come down to street level and look around and say, oh, cool, that looks like a fascinating thing to draw.
No kidding.
So I have done a lot of that, and so like I said, 45% from my life. So the books that I carry around with me, I use these Moleskine watercolor books, which are 5 by 8 inches. So when you open them up, you have 5 by 16. It's very oblong. And I'll just start drawing at a restaurant or waiting for the subway or wherever I am. And I draw with a pen every time. I don't draw with a pencil because I want every line to mean something. And I don't want to erase and get fussy. And I don't have a design. I just look and I say, where am I going to start? And I start with whatever caught my eye. And then I put the foreground, and then I just keep moving. So the thing is, when people see the posts from those books, it looks like I'm out at pubs all the time, which, which I'm not. Those are the ones, if you're out to eat. And I can sit and have my meal and draw away what's going on and converse with everybody and not have it be distracting or take away from the joy of having a meal with somebody.
So these ones, so me and Elizabeth, we're working on something new where, we're going to start like talking about some of the pieces. I'm going to pull something out of the back of this just because I stuck the card. I have these 2 coasters of yours, which these are great. And that the restaurant, I used to live right around the corner from
Woody's is the best eggplant pizza. So it's right there on Hemingway, near Northeastern, and the Museum of Fine Arts, for those who need to know.
So apparently I'm just judging from the card. I've had this for a number of years. I don't...
Did I date them?
Yeah, 2019. It looks like
2019.
January 31st, 2019. It was like Valentine's Day present. So Jen must have like
She snagged them from
yeah,
me.
she must have seen them on on Instagram on your and contacted you about. I don't know what the process was on how she got them from you. What, do you have a lot of people reach out to you through Instagram, like direct messages, and just say that
Yeah,
I like this one, I want it?
That's how it happens. Like I said, some of them are on my website, but I'm not really in it about the commerce. I mean, I'm not gonna turn it down.
Yep.
Right. But I'm not I'm not about the marketing of it.
Yep.
So she definitely reached out to me privately, which she did about another one also that was Kane's Donuts down in the business district.
Her brother is a big Kane's Donut guy,
Yeah.
so I'm sure that I'm sure
she
that
loved that one.
Yep.
So the coasters, I was in some restaurant one time, or our daughter went to Northeastern, and so we would be in there at a pub or something, and I started drawing on a coaster, and I thought this is so fun. But coasters are promotional material, so they usually have designs on both sides. So I actually bought myself 100 blank coasters, which those are part of, and I would carry them with me.
Okay.
So I have done a lot of coaster art, and I probably have 40 or 50 of them, just capturing. They're really fun to draw on. Yep. I mean, their job is to absorb liquid, right? So so as soon as you put watercolor on it, it sort of sucks it in, and it becomes, the colors get very intense. So I have a bunch of coaster art, which will also be in my show, which you and I will talk about.
Yeah.
How to do.
Yeah, no. So that's why I framed them that way, just because I thought they were so interesting on the coasters, and I floated it on that map board and then matted around it so you could really see that they're a coaster.
That looks fabulous.
Which I didn't actually even talk about in the when we were still like in the testing stages, right, Elizabeth? About
it's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress. I think we'll get there. I have this vision of like trying to explain to people about art and like about buying local art, and about how everything, all artwork, like there's like a story behind it, and that makes it more interesting. And I mean, to me, this one's there's a great story behind it. So. Which now we're talking about it more. We're going to probably have to go back and record it. Record it again.
We need to go to Woody's.
But I grew up around the corner. I was there like, I think it was like my stop every night. Before I stopped drinking, that was like beer, pizza, after work, and then me and Jen went there a couple times. I think one of our first dates might have been over there, or on one of our first dates we might have at least stopped in for a cocktail. So she must have seen it at the end of January.
Well, she has a good memory.
Bought it for me for Valentine's Day, judging by the card that I had attached to the back. So.
Well, that's the thing too. Like when you say about picking up original art, it doesn't have to be hugely expensive, and of course those weren't. But if you're on somewhere like Instagram and you curate what you see, you're seeing all kinds of things, and artists respond when you reach out to them. And I just think there's so much original art that's accessible. Down here on the South Shore, tons of it. Yep. There's so much access now to the internet in so many ways that you just keep an eye. And original art, nobody else has it. Nobody else has those.
Yep.
Only you.
Yeah.
And they're special to you. They mean something to the two of you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a great story. I mean, to me, the great story behind it, added on top of the fact that good relationship with you, I've known you for a long time. And, so it's like, it's not only like the significance of what the subject matter is, but like there's also a nice tie to the artist as well, which makes it even better.
And it's fun for me, the drawing every day when I'm out somewhere. There's an immediacy, and my goal isn't to chronicle my life, but that has become a result. Right?
Yeah.
So for 5 years now, I have drawings of all kinds of events. I mean, I draw in the theater. I was drawing at Symphony Hall one year when I took my daughter to see Amadeus, which was so great, right? So they showed the movie, and but the orchestra was playing all the Mozart right in front of it. Ooh, it was awesome. So I did a drawing of the orchestra and then just the words Amadeus in there, and which they saw and they put into some brochure or something of theirs, which was nice because it really captured that feeling of there. And I didn't do it from a photograph later.
Yeah.
And when I add color to those, I never use a photograph later. I usually just draw with the ink when I'm in place, and then I'll add color later, but I add the color out of my head how I want it to be.
Yeah, she had told me. I remember this because she said, "Oh, I tried to get one of them," and there, she ended up giving me both. And I just thought it told a cool story too. Like one was like a little less finished, I don't know what, and then the second one, very similar, like colored in. So
Yeah.
I'm like I really like them together.
I like them together. That's nice of you to remind me. I have a record of every piece of art that I have put out there in the world that somebody has. So somewhere I have a list of that, but it's a few years back. So.
You getting pretty good at photographing the artwork to post on Instagram, or is it just a quick snap?
I use my cell phone. I edit it on my phone. So I'm not doing anything. But those pictures are reasonable. And I actually, just the other day, there was something came up about some company that was printing things on canvas, and they were offering a free one. And of course, shipping costs money. So, so I took one of my photos of a drawing I have that's 4x6. So I'm doing a series of gouache paintings that are 4x6, and I have maybe 10 or 12 of them now. So one of them especially struck me, so I just thought this is free on canvas, and it's 16 by 20, and I just wanted to see what the quality was. And that's an iPhone photo, and it came out great.
Yep.
It printed up really well. The colors were accurate. You never know what the colors are completely accurate if you're doing it yourself, because your screen is different than reality, a little bit. But so I was pleased. So that's good enough.
It's funny you mentioned the colors on the iPhone. So I wonder a little bit, and since you have a history with North River and that juried show, where you've gone from like jurying the original pieces where like everyone's walking by and they're doing the parade, to the actual, now everything's digital entries. Now, do you feel like with the digital entries, is that still a pretty solid is it? Do you lose something because someone could click a filter, or like the colors might, just because of not even intentionally how they photograph it, sometimes colors are a little bit more vibrant or they're less vibrant, which could be a good or a bad thing.
So I think it's a double-edged sword. So a couple things. Actually, let me back up. So when you're posting something digitally to a show, you're relying on the judges to take a good look and zoom in on that image that you provided. So hopefully people are getting educated about how to provide an image that's a high enough resolution to let them really come in and look at the brushwork or look at your strokes on there. Not everybody does, and I don't think all jurors are spending that time. So let's say they did not spend that time. I can't say if they are or aren't. I've juried some shows online. I spend that time because I think the artists deserve it. So
sometimes the texture inside a painting, like
it
makes a huge difference. It's not like it, because painting is three-dimensional. Even if it's layered on lightly, I mean, there's a third dimension to the 3D
and the scale
effect
is
that
missing
really
too. I mean,
so now you're looking at everything at a.
So let's say you can't tell if a jury is going to look or not look in depth, but if they do not, you would want to have an image that had a really powerful design or maybe a little bit higher contrast. So when they're seeing a thumbnail, this is my own take. Nobody's told me this. This is just my thinking.
Yeah, no, I just asked because I'm curious. I mean,
So your thumbnail should be like strong visually right off the bat. So I do think there's a disadvantage there for artists who paint more tonally and their value range is much closer. If the judges aren't looking at those images really closely, then they're going to pick up on those nuances. And it reminded me of years ago, I went to a chowder festival at Government Center. So how does that relate, might you think? So, and I thought to myself, people are walking around trying 20 different chowders from local restaurants and voting. Well, the chowder that has a taste it's got to stand out somehow. Like good chowder is good chowder, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, but it had to make itself stand out. So how was it going to do that? I don't know. You have to do the same thing when you're in a juried show, I think.
Yeah. So more of a statement. It's just interesting to think about because like you said, I hadn't even thought of the scale thing. Now you got somebody's looking at like a 5x5 like a small painting, and you're looking at it in kind of the same the same scale as like a big 30.
Yeah, and then when you go, like I did a show on the Cape a few years ago with Mike Sleeper and Irina Roman, and we were the judges, and we judged on our own like you do making our choices, and then whatever got the top votes showed up at the Cape, and the three of us went to choose the awards. And it was striking to me, like there was a painting of some peonies, and I thought that was a pretty decent painting, but when I got there, so I hadn't noted the scale when I looked at it online, and it was large. It was 2 by 3 feet, and that changed my impression of it.
Yeah.
Actually, for the better, even.
Yeah.
So that's lost. On the other side, so those things are. I think can be a disadvantage, but the advantage is you get much wider participation.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
From far and wide, and also artists don't have to frame things.
Yep. No, I mean, I've thought about. That's one
Which
of the
is
reasons why
problem
I've
for
thought
you,
about
maybe.
it. Actually, I think we're working on a blog. I think we actually have a blog post about that. I think that obviously less people are framing things because they, not everybody has to drop off a framed piece that, because they can just do it. So, maybe we're losing that way, but I think we might gain in the sense that, like, you got your piece in. So now instead of just like, all right, I just need a frame on this. Now it's like, all right, well, this is the piece that's going into a show. So I think people might put a little bit more,
Right.
little bit more into it, like
think you're right.
instead of just, I don't want to say cheaping out, but like just doing the bare minimum to meet the requirements. Now you got this piece into the show, so now it's like it's in. So now I want it to present it as not,
somebody might want to take it home.
Yeah.
So your big rush here for the North River Arts Festival is not.
It's not as it's not as
It's not Mother's Day weekend. It's
I think it's died down a
after
little
that.
bit, but but that leads to another point too. When now the judge isn't taking into account the way it's framed because just from experience, knowing hanging these shows, sometimes I look at things and I'm like, wow, like I think that this, you see how this is framed, and if it was presented in front of a judge, I can't imagine that it would lessen their opinion of it, like sometimes if it's something that's really done really, or it's like, well, you can tell that this piece was painted a long time ago just from the style of the frame,
or that the mat is not acid free.
Yeah. But again, I mean, I guess everything has evolved to digital entries for a number of reasons.
Yeah, and it's the way we're going. So I think it's a positive overall. Even though I think if you just looked at the amount of time I spoke, I think I talked negatives more than positives there. But when we used to do the jury day in person, was really interesting to hear what the jurors sometimes said about they couldn't take their eyes sometimes off a bad frame.
Yeah,
I mean, it would, and then they weren't objective about the piece of art.
I think it can. I think it can kill it. But I mean, I think it also add to the piece quite a bit. It's always about the artwork.
So we are going to talk about framing for my show, which is going to be kind of interesting.
Nice. What do you have? Something special in mind?
I don't. Somewhere where I can,
The show is the show in January?
It's in December.
December?
So
nice. That's a good time for a show right before the holidays.
Yeah. So I've decided I'm going to organize the work by theme. Mm-hmm. So I do a lot of architectural, and I'm not an architect, so I don't want people to misunderstand what I mean by that. But I love drawing the city. I love being in the city and hanging out somewhere. And actually, this occurred to me. I was down in Bryant Park in New York a few years ago, and I was with my daughter, and I was hanging out drawing. And so oftentimes it's the angle of some buildings, the way they cut into the sky. So I'll just sort of draw that as the top boundary of whatever I'm drawing. And so you're drawing those angles, you're drawing those lines, and suddenly my pen will sort of make a little move because 5 stories up, and this struck me that day, I remember the day, 5 stories up on some building across Bryant Park from where I was sitting, there was a cornice or a molding. Not the top floor, just 5 stories up. And there were probably more above. And I thought to myself, so this is a connection for me, which I love. I get emotional about it. Somebody 130 years ago, whenever it was, I don't know when it was, built that building and put some things up there on the wall that nobody's going to see. But I saw them.
Yeah.
Here in 2019 or whatever year it was, I saw it. And they did that for me, or for whomever. And I thought that aesthetic is so joyful to me.
Yeah.
So when I'm sitting drawing on Newbury Street or anywhere in Boston, I'm just
looking for details.
looking at and you know, and I'm not looking for buildings that have that. I'm trying to capture a sense of what's happening around me. So there's that boundary against the sky, and then there's all these. Every drawing I do looks like I'm at a mob scene, even though I'm not, even through COVID. But I just keep adding people as they come and go.
Yep.
And so you know, you have that, you know, centuries old thing up top, and then all that contemporary activity below. Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah, no, I especially like the city scenes of yours. I like those a lot. I like mine.
I love yours.
The Cane. It's funny. The Cane's Donut. I know that. I think either my brother-in-law or my father-in-law. One of them, I think, has something of yours too. Because you have Rachel's husband. I think they.
Oh, they have a
ice
winter
cream.
painting.
Ice cream. I think there's something ice cream related.
Oh, there is. So I'll talk about my painting group because this comes up with that. Many have heard, many of you have not heard. So there's a painting group that I'm involved in called Girls Just Want to Paint, and I think there are 10 of us, and we've been together a long time, 12, 15 years.
And who else is in that? Is Nancy?
Nancy was in it. She took a break. Paige Railsback's there.
Okay.
Kelly McDonald. I'm going to forget somebody. People are going to be upset.
Yeah, we'll
Peggy
add them
Bruno,
in later.
Sally Dean, Tori Braga,
Yeah.
Mary Sheehan Wynn. I'm going right down the list. Pam Copeman.
You can probably find it online.
Yes, I'm like hugely embarrassed now. Hey, I'm on the mic. I'm on.
Yeah, it's nerve-wracking. A lot of pressure.
When it comes
You
back
got
to me,
Elizabeth
I'll just-
breathing down your throat over there.
Yeah, sorry.
So every month, one of us chooses a theme, and we paint our interpretation of that theme, and Paula Villanova. And and we do it on our own.
Yeah.
We don't usually paint together. And then we have a blog called Girls Just Want to Paint. And then on the first of the month, so that's this Saturday, our interpretations of that theme come up. We post once a month, sometimes more if something's happening. So this month, for example, the theme is takeout.
Yep.
Which is a theme I chose, which you can interpret it however you want, and
That's a great
all of us
idea.
will. So
Kind of like the theme art shows, right?
Yeah.
I like it.
So it's take out or take somebody out, or so that blog, Girls Just Want to Paint, you'll find 10 interpretations of that theme.
I think we're gonna have to check that out. I don't think I've been. I knew about the group. I didn't realize there was a blog.
Yeah, so we have a blog, and so when we pick the theme, so they were teasing me about this the other day because I have this thing about prepositions as a theme. So the one with the ice cream, I chose the theme with,
Yep.
and I got a lot of eye rolls, which is and we also meet then the first week of the month we meet together to
they
critique
physically
and
get
talk
together.
about with the
Nice.
paintings. So I chose the theme with a few years ago. Everybody's like, what is with you? So I did with sprinkles, and
Yep.
so that's the one that somebody in your family
Yeah, I
owns.
think it's either
At an
John.
ice cream
It's
stand.
either my brother-in-law or my father-in-law, and it might have been that my brother-in-law got it for the father, like because of their
Yeah.
ties to the.
Well, I've
dairy
also
industry.
chosen under and over, and
But,
I
yeah.
mean prepositions are great to paint. There's so many interesting things. So, so this month it's what did I say? Takeout. No preposition there, but
Yeah, how did the
that's okay.
group? How did the group form?
They formed. Kelly McDonald had the idea, so she's a artist who teaches at North River.
Yeah.
She lives in Providence. The group was together for a little while before they asked me to join, but I think I've been there like 12 years. So she had this idea that there could be a sort of a painting group that worked thematically, supported each other. Also, my jobs coming out of the box, I wrote software for 20 years, so I'm really deadline driven. So
Yep.
having a deadline every month is important to me.
Yeah, every day. You have a deadline every
Oh, I
day
do
too.
have a
Yeah.
that one is that's
Yeah, but
rote
now it's part of your life. Yeah,
it is
like,
part of my life.
That's a good habit to establish. Like we all try to establish like daily rituals, daily habits. That's a great one to have.
Yeah, and so I don't do the drawing at the same time every day, and I don't feel pressured every day. I just know it's going to happen. So I have my materials with me every day,
Carry
and
them out, yeah.
I find a little time to do something. And now that I'm retired, which is I don't even know what that really means yet.
Are you teaching painting still?
Not right now. I'm really concentrating on that show in the fall, and in December.
Because you've taught at North River for a number of
did.
years too. Because I know Chris used to rave about you.
Well, that's nice of her. I taught oil painting at North River for a long time, but at the same time I was becoming a teacher, a math teacher at South Shore Charter. So when I got certified to teach, I started as the math tutor in the school, and then I asked them about 3 or 4 years in, I asked the director, hey, if I went and got, because it didn't make sense to get paid by the hour, So I thought, if I go get certified, would you want me to teach math, and what would you want me for more hours, and what grades? And she said, yes, please, and middle school. So for a couple of years, I hung on to I taught 4 days. I prepped for Friday, and I went and taught painting on Friday. It was really arduous. Anyway, eventually,
it's kind of two different, can you find a way to tie those together, math and painting, or is
I can. So, so first of all, I was raised by an artist. My mother, Joanne Regan, was an artist, and her father was a chemical engineer. My grandfather was a chemical engineer from MIT. He died when I was 10 months old, so I didn't know him. But when he retired, they lived in New York, and when he retired, I guess he went off secretly and took all these painting classes, and then came forward. My mother was, an artist at the time, and he came and said, look, there's another artist in the family. So to me, the sense that I have of like angles, proportions, the weight of things, symmetry, like how to keep things balanced but asymmetrical, all of that ties in a lot to math.
Yep.
And I remember teaching at North River one time when Christine was in the class, and I was talking to them about perspective, right? So perspective can be super mathy, but once you understand the few rules of it and you're not breaking those, you can be really successful with it without having it get too technical. But I remember explaining this to them, and I talked about parallel, so they were with me with parallel, and then I used the word perpendicular.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was Chris or somebody, they're like, you have lost us, and we're going to leave screaming from the room. So there's where I went too far with the math. But I really feel like students of mine who really get math, like I say, they have number sense.
Yep.
They understand like the feeling and the weight of numbers, and that's the same with art. Like, what's the feeling and the weight of what you're doing right there in that design or that piece? They're all related to me. And I don't think it's just my brain.
Yeah.
So I came out of high school thinking, I'm going to go to college for math or art, and I don't know which. I really didn't know. So my mother, the artist, said, and I don't think this was a comment on my ability. I wasn't a painter then, but I like to draw.
Yep.
She said, go for math because no schmuck will have to support you. That's basically what she said. And then, so I wrote software for a long time, and I didn't make art. Although I took drawing classes every semester in college. And I didn't really start making art till I was in my 30s. So.
Yeah. Well, there's still some, I feel like I've taken a hiatus with kids, and hopefully I'll get back there, someday. I was hopeful that maybe with like Maya, I'd she'd be doing a lot of painting and I could paint with her, but it doesn't seem to be happening yet.
Not her thing, is she?
Yeah, she's talented, I think, but she's just like very driven in other directions, like reading books and doing math homework and stuff.
Come on. I mean, I don't know how long my mother, if she thought I was going to get involved in it, or I mean, there was no pressure on any of us. Yep. She was a phenomenal painter, and there was no expectation. In fact, I have my brother Chris who lives in Marshfield.
Shingle artist.
Yeah, he just did. He was contracted by it's a federal organization. I don't know if whoever runs Nauset Beach, right? So they built new bathhouses, and they contracted him to design the shingle art for these new bathhouses.
His stuff's great.
Yeah,
there's probably a lot of math goes into that too, right?
I don't know how. Well, he had a piece like standing up at North River years ago that everybody and all these people walking by at the festival, including carpenters, were coming in and they couldn't understand how. I mean, they could make shingle art, but they couldn't understand how he did it. Like he has a way of he has that kind of brain where he can visualize things.
He does like really interesting stuff. I do not. Does he show his stuff anywhere, or is it?
He doesn't.
I feel like I see pictures on Facebook of his like some projects every once in a while, maybe.
Yeah, he has projects, but he wouldn't say he's not making art on a regular basis. So I don't want to put words in his head. I mean, he has a master's degree in sculpture from Cranbrook, so he would consider himself as not sculpting at this time because he isn't. He is doing some projects. But he's, so I don't want to speak for him. Sorry, Chris, whatever.
We'll get him on here. We'll have him come in.
Yeah, he's so interesting and he's so talented.
Yeah.
And he never sits still. I mean, he just, he's always, but they have a middle school son, so he's pretty busy with all that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Football is happening now, which is really fun.
No hockey?
No, he plays other sports, but not a hockey player. Chris is a hockey player.
Yeah, I know.
Robert's
I
skated
with and against Chris for a couple of years.
So.
Interesting. Well, so back to the girls just want to paint group. So you guys actually do get together every once in a while.
We get together every month. So we post on the first of the month, and then we meet during the first week of the month. So our blog post we all are administrators of our blog, so we all can go in and edit it and put our paintings in with a little blurb about what they mean, and whoever starts off the post schedules it it's going to kick off at 1 or 2 in the morning, a Saturday morning after Friday night, and then we get together in the week and we bring our physical art with us and talk about it.
Yeah, and that's not like critiquing and that's. I mean, I would imagine that there's a lot of benefit and a lot of inspiration from getting that group together.
Well, there's such a strong group. I'm still apologizing because I know I've missed somebody. Jeannie McFarland.
Yeah.
See, I didn't. Okay. Oh, jeez, I'm embarrassed. Anyway,
we're gonna edit. We're gonna cut anyone's missing. We'll just have you come back. You'll record, say their name. We'll make Scott edit it in there one way or the other.
So everybody in the group is really such a strong painter and very different.
Yep.
We're all really different from one another. So there's different approaches, which I think is valuable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely some
to be part of it.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like just the names you're ringing off. You got a strong group. I have one of Kelly. Kelly McDonald's is the sapphire bottle that we were shooting. Yeah. Yeah, that was I have a painting of Kelly's that I bought from the Duxbury show, and it was like after I stopped drinking.
Yeah.
It was bottle of sapphire.
Congratulations on that. By the way.
It's like 10 plus. It's like it's like my vegan diet. It's like now it's like just part of my personality now. But that was like I saw that one, and we were recording about this as well. It's like the significance of that painting. It's like a really strong painting, but like. When I saw it, I remember it was like when I was still fighting it, but I'm like, this is going to be the last bottle of sapphire I ever buy, and it's a little painting that I have hanging up.
Nice.
And there's no temptation or anything left in my, but I have that painting, and it's a great painting, little, but it kind of has like another like significance.
I like how you say that. So the works that you have, I mean, some people will look at a piece of art and say, oh, that's pretty. Well, we live in a pretty place, so there's lots of things that are pretty, which is fine, and fill your house with those. But I would say almost everything that I have, and I mean, my house is not filled with my art.
Whose art do you have?
So
everyone in the groups? Do you have
I almost have everybody in the group. So I have art by people I don't know that I found online. I have my mother's art. I have some of her, my brothers and I call dead guy art because she had a big collection. But so I'm thinking right now in my kitchen. So I have this painting Tori Braga did. We had her up we go to Monhegan Island every summer, my family and I. And Tori was up there with us and did a painting, which is actually of us, sort of. There's a tradition on Monhegan Island, which is 10 miles off the coast of Maine. For those who don't know, no cars. So there's a tradition when the ferry leaves to take people away, sometimes people jump off the dock. And it's cold, and if the tide is down, it's a 20-foot drop, And so people will jump, and people cheer them on, and people on the ferry are cheering. So so we were there for some people jumping. I didn't jump, but Tori did a painting. So her painting's in my kitchen. I have this painting I love by this guy named Dwayne Kaiser, who's in North Carolina, and he's actually the originator of the painting a day sort of model,
Yep.
which he's probably been doing for 20 years. And I remember reading about him. He was in the Wall Street Journal. I mean, he's a great painter. I have a small painting that he did. So he painted something every day. The gallery thing wasn't working for him, as he said. So he just started painting every day. He got a little following. He put them out on eBay.
Yeah. I think there's some interesting
very
themes there.
interesting
I
guy.
remember seeing a show in Provincetown, and it was a guy who did, paintings of like the moon every night.
Wow.
For a year. I don't know if I don't think it was an everyday thing. It might have just been a year, but like there's some significance to that too, because like people are tied into dates as well. So like somebody's birthday, or here's that scene. I know that my friend Michael he paints every day. He gets the sunrise, and there's some significance. People want certain dates as well.
They do. They
numbers and dates. Like there's always those are always.
Yeah, he did a thing years ago, which I thought was interesting. He had this Dwayne Kaiser. So he would occasionally, I think I'm talking 18 years ago. So he would have these scraps of whatever his painting surface was, and like a board, and he called them oddments, right? So French for scrap, I guess. And so occasionally those would go out there, and the first person who wanted it could have it. But then he decided, speaking of dates, he said, I'm going to do a year of odd months. You can buy one in advance. Just pick a number. So you didn't know what you were going to get. You just picked a number, and the day that of the 365 that he painted that, it came to you. So I did. I bought one. Sight unseen, I think on my husband's birthday date. And so I have this, it's probably 1 inch by 2.5 inches of a peanut in a shell, half shelled kind of thing. It's beautiful. I mean, so I mean, it was worth the risk. The cost was reasonable, so I thought it was like I'd take the risk. So
Would you say that most of the pieces that you have in the house are like there's a story behind them?
Absolutely.
I mean that's what I want this video series that we're trying. We're going to start at my house. Maybe we'll hit you up and we'll come by and visit you at some point.
Yeah.
I kind of in my mind have this this thing of kind of just talking to people and getting the stories behind it to kind of. Because I feel like some people are intimidated by art, and like there's stories behind everything too.
Well, how do you know you're getting? This is what I think paralyzes people. How do you know you're getting something that's good? Yeah. I mean, that's a question.
And I think that sometimes people are intimidated because they don't want to. It's like a deer in the headlights, right? So they're concerned, they like it, but they don't know why they like it. So I think sometimes talking to people, and like getting to know the artist or like having that relationship. Is important and helps people want to buy things, but I think that they're just nervous, and they don't want to be made fun of, or like they don't want to be like,
I'm seeing a bond here that could be created. This just occurred to me. So everybody out there, you find yourself a friend who knows something about art, and just ask them their opinion. And it doesn't, and specifically, about the design. Well, do you need to have a friend that way? Is it a service you offer, Dave? Hey, what do you think about this?
Maybe it is. I mean, I don't like to dictate to people what they should have and what they shouldn't, because I think that everybody has different tastes, and I think that there's good art. There's in my opinion, but it's so. When people come in and they ask about opinions on frames, I mean, it's like there's like 100 different options that are all right.
For me. Yeah.
But it's so subjective, right? Like there's like this might have looked good with a white frame and done like very contemporary. Like I just like the way that one worked. There's like so many right answers. I mean, there's certainly wrong answers, right?
I feel like there's too many choices for me, personally, which is why I love your staff here who have good ideas. And then if somebody offers me 5 ideas, which often will happen, then I can say which ones I don't or do want.
I mean, sometimes it's easier to narrow it down by eliminating too.
And I didn't mean you would offer a service to say to somebody, don't buy that painting, but you might say, look how strong that design is, or
I mean, I think at this point I've seen so much art, and I know what I like, and sometimes it's just a matter of like, all right, well, there's certain artists whose stuff I want. I'm sure I'm going to have some more of your paintings at some point. But like it's about the right one hitting me and seeing the work and then just buying it, because I have some in my mind, like ones that I feel like at the time I saw, and like at the time I couldn't really like justify paying for it. But now it's like, Jesus, I wish I had bought that. Yeah.
Right. Well,
There's
there's
ones
also, there's ways to take a risk. Like, let's say you're somebody who doesn't have a lot of original art, or you feel uncertain, and people will say, well, buy what you like, but it's kind of hard to know, if you're new at it. There are opportunities here on the South Shore a lot, like again about the North River Arts Festival. There's an Art in the Barn concept there. So artists put in, I think, up to 20 pieces. The prices are all under $200, but the bulk of the prices are under $50.
Yeah.
And so you can take a risk for $40 on something that appeals to you.
Yeah.
And then you bring, it's $40, and you're helping an artist, you help the organization, you have some original art. You bring it home, and that's a start.
Yeah.
And that's worth the risk.
Well, Chris has a great thing is she's always talked about with like framing, and I think the same applies towards, towards buying artwork as well. It's like people sometimes they balk at a price, and then it's like, but they wouldn't balk at that same price if it was what the dinner was costing.
Exactly.
And that dinner's gone.
That's right.
That experience is over in a short period of time. Like if you were thinking about having a meal and it's costing $200, and that's gone forever after that night. You might have a nice, it might have had a significant memory from that, that night, or it might have been an anniversary or something. But like that's gone. A piece of artwork you carry with you for the.
Yeah, I traveled a lot in my 20s, and now we've had COVID, but Steve and I have had a chance to take our daughter when she was younger. I buy a piece of art every time I travel. Mm-hmm. Which is what you're saying about having the stories. And I'm not going into a gallery to buy a piece of art. There's art on the street. So I have a beautiful primitive painting of a boat that I bought from a guy on the street. Who painted it on a piece of driftwood.
Yeah.
And I have these beautiful carved birds. When I was in my 20s, my mother and I and a friend of hers went to Jamaica, and we weren't in a resort. We were sort of on the main drag, which wasn't really that safe, I think, for
looking back,
three women from New England.
Yeah.
So, but there was the house.
You survived.
Well, there was a couple, May and Leonard, who I was in my 20s. I don't know how old they were, but she cooked our meals in this little house, and he hung out every evening, and turned out he would play dominoes with us, and turns out he sort of slept in this shed, on the property.
Keep going.
So I have two birds that he carved out of driftwood, which are really beautiful. So and I think he was functionally illiterate. So I looked at them again the other day. I was dusting them off, and one, my mother had one, I had the other, but she's deceased now, so the birds are back together. So the bottom of one has him, how he had written his name with the ability that he had, because education wasn't a priority, you know. So it was interesting.
Yeah, the trips are a good way to have a significance to it. I was buying a piece every year after I hung North River.
You think?
Yeah, well,
That's
I get
idea.
that. I saw him talking to Mike Sleeper about this a while back, and it's like, because he was kind of he was early on. He got an early view too, because he would always light it.
Right.
But we after hanging it, you're getting a. I'm looking at all the pieces like kind of closely because you're trying to make sure that
you do a really nice job.
You're trying to make sure that certain, it's tricky. That's a challenging job.
Hard,
and Mary would, you never, there's always an adjustment that a different set of eyes, comes in and says, well, yeah, maybe, but you're looking at everything, and you got to preview kind of before anybody else gets to show up.
Well,
and
I think volunteerism has its perks.
Benefits, yeah.
So that certainly is one, and good for you.
Well, I also thought it was a nice way to, I wanted to make a point to buy a piece from the festival because buying that art and supporting the organization also. I didn't buy one this year, but I don't.
Yeah, it was nice to be back this year. I know, as you know, because I remember years ago I took that picture of you and Maya walking down the yellow line together. Now, what is she, 12?
13. Yeah.
Holy cow. Anyway, so she was walking. She was probably a little over a year. But I paint out on the street both days, all day long, which I love.
And how do they pick the artists to do that? Or is it just whoever?
It's a volunteer thing, and so
you just show up and paint?
Yeah, Nancy Howell sends out a call, and people just show up, but I like to do it. So
Get
other
interrupted?
people pick times. Oh yeah, completely. I mean, I probably completed a painting like I don't know how many times. Not many, but I love especially talking to the kids and the way I paint. So kids, somebody will come by and my painting never looks like anything at the start.
Yeah.
Some people's do, mine don't. And so they smile and nod. But then I will say to the kids, especially ones who ask me interesting questions, come back in a half an hour, or come back and go to the end, get your hot dog, come back this way. And sometimes I let them paint on my canvas. If I
Collaboration.
yeah, well, I taught middle school for a long time, so I know how to choose wisely. So I know which student to choose somehow, just based on what they ask me.
Yeah.
And I remember one time I let a girl do this, and her parents were behind me just making faces. No, because they thought she was going to wreck it. And I said, so I'm putting all these people in. What color do you think? And she was wearing purple head to toe. This girl, she was probably 9.
So you had a pretty good feeling that she
Yeah, I'm
might
like,
pick
what color
purple?
do you think that person should be wearing? She's like, how about purple? It's a very
What
good
do you
choice. So I left her person. She painted a person's, what they were wearing and a couple other things, and I left those there, whether it was what I would have chosen or not. So
That's awesome.
which was pretty awesome because their kids are great.
Yes, I got plenty.
I got
I'm sure we
I feel like I've been talking a lot.
No, I mean this whole the whole idea with the podcast. One, I think bringing some artists out and like getting I think people also like another thing as far as like buying artwork, like people getting a little background from artists and like getting to know them. I think this is a nice way to get people to like kind of get not that you're not the very well known on the South Shore, but some people might have heard of you, they might have seen your work, but then getting to hear a little bit about your background, like I'm sure that there's people that know you as Jody the math teacher and don't even know that.
They don't know. So at the South Shore Charter School where I this past tense thing is hard, but where I taught, right? Every content teacher, so every teacher also teaches what's called project because the school has an emphasis on project-based learning. So I taught an art project, which was a couple of hours a week, and which I love doing. And all of the students at our school, and you can attest to this, starting in kindergarten, make a presentation out of their project. It's called an exhibition of mastery. So mine were all about art. So as a result, the students that come out of that school are great public speakers.
Yeah, I feel like both my kids are very.
Our daughter completely at ease.
Yep.
And when there's an open house at the school, which I think there usually is one in November and another one in January, it's students who are 11, 12, 13 who are leading groups around.
I remember the tours. It was like these are little little people that are very capable and not intimidated to talk to you.
So when was the first time you spoke like to an audience? Do you remember?
I don't know, but I still into an audience. I think I remember getting up in front of a classroom, even when I did my half a semester at college, and remember having to speak and still getting nervous. I've gone and I've spoken even about framing, and I'm like this is a subject I know the back of my hands. I mean, 30 years now. I remember doing a talk about framing at Social Arts Center, and it's still like nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I think I did it
I think if I think
7th grade, which is holy cow, so much is happening in 7th grade.
Yep.
As an individual anyway, and then to have you get up in front of everybody and speak, it's
challenging,
hard. But then when I wrote software, which I did for a long time, we had a users conference where we would need to get up in front of potentially 1,000 people, depends how many people came, and talk about the project we were working on. And I was terrified. I was in my, how old was I? In my early 30s maybe, and that was terrifying to me. But then once I found art and started teaching, now just off the cuff.
Yeah,
but
now
these kids, but your kids and my kid, they've got it down.
Yeah, no, it's a great tool and a benefit. I mean, being able to communicate is so important.
So we used to make things at school for the auction, so I would have my art kids make things, and so there's these things that they've made over the years. I always would use the school logo in the art, so there's different pieces of art.
We might have framed one or two of those.
And then we ended this year, one of the teachers who was in charge of the library asked me if my art project would like to make a mural for the library about cultural diversity. So it's student driven. So I asked them and they agreed. So we did. We made a big mural. We divided it we talked about what that meant, and they decided there's all kinds of diversity. So we made the mural into 4 quadrants. So there's 4 3-by-3 foot canvases, so it's a 6-by-6 square, and it was supposed to go in the library. I didn't want it on the wall because if they reconfigured it would be gone.
Yep.
So we did it on canvas,
smart.
and so I'm like, they're working so hard.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have that go away.
Yeah, when you can easily just put it on a panel
Right.
and hang it.
So now it's hanging behind the front desk because they loved it so much. So that's super great for these kids, 7th and 8th. So those 7th graders are still there and they get to see their work every day, which is pretty nice.
Yeah.
So I made a vow. I did the same when I taught painting. I've never touched my brush to somebody's canvas. Not theirs, the kids, not a student. I just won't do it. My reason being, when I started painting, I was my mother's student. I grew up in Canton. She had a studio there. So as a 30-year-old, when I moved back to Massachusetts from D.C., I said, hey, I want to take painting classes with you. So I was one of her regular students, except she made me dinner. But I took the trash out. So, and then I had these paintings I did of these still lifes and things. And I would hang some of them around. And over the years, people, whoever saw them, would always say, I love that passage right there. And it was always the place that she touched. Because she would touch, she would do a little, every single time.
Yeah.
So I was resolved
Yeah.
never to touch a canvas.
Yeah.
Because I just didn't want to hear that anymore.
Yeah.
Because of course it was. She was amazing.
Yeah, you don't want to steal anyone's thunder. Well, when we do this podcast, we've started a new tradition. We wrap them up, and we've been asking everyone who's joining us about how do we put it, Elizabeth? Their favorite piece in their house, or just to tell us about one of their favorite pieces that they have at their have framed hanging at their house to try to get the story behind it. And then we ask them to send us a picture of it so we can the people listening or watching can get a visual of it as well.
Can I have 2?
You can have as many as you want. You can tell. I mean, we're gonna actually go to your house at some point once I get my plan of like telling the stories behind artwork on the wall. We're gonna.
All right, so I'll tell you. So 2. So in this big Victorian house where I grew up, it had the back-to-back living rooms with these marble fireplaces. So when my mother did portraits of all of us, many in pastel. So she had a framer in Boston. I would go with her when I was a kid, and I think it was in Back Bay somewhere. I think Copley Place is on top of it now.
Frames by Guido.
No, it was I don't know. It was like a palace of when you walked in. I remember there was a train track right behind it. All like gilt and statuary. I mean, it was an amazing, phenomenal place. So she bought these 2 great big huge gold frames, and for some reason over the mantle there was a portrait of me at I'm the only girl out of 5 kids, and there was me at maybe 8 years old.
Forgetting some of the artists. Now you're forgetting siblings.
Well, no, I'll tell you what. And then there was my brother Kevin. So, and Kevin was like energy that couldn't be contained. So I can't believe, and these were from life. Like, so when we were dividing up all my mother's things, we had furniture day and dish day and book day and painting day, because there was just so many things. So we just, my brother Kevin passed away in his 30s unexpectedly. So of my 4 brothers, that one who had been on the wall with me forever was deceased. And those paintings were down. They'd been down for the last decade. They were tucked away somewhere, but I knew where it was. So when it was my turn, I went and dug up on the 3rd floor of the house behind the knee wall, and I found the one of Kevin. I didn't care about the one of me.
Yeah.
So my brothers are like, oh, that's a cool choice.
Yeah.
And I said, any one of you can have the painting of me. And they were like, no, you take it, which I knew they would. So now I have them, but I brought them in here. So they're in these ornate gold, 1910 frames. And so I brought them in here to you guys. You took them apart. You put all the correct backing, so they're more archival museum glass. So you updated them for me. So they're still hanging side by side in my house that does not have giant marble fireplaces. But so that makes me happy. So that's one. So then the other one is So I had always loved this artist, Chip Chadbourne. So Alfred Chadbourne, he's deceased. He died in, I don't know, in 1990. But he was one of the famous artist school in New York that used to put out these classes, and his work is amazing. And when Steve and I got married, I was 35, and we had a house. And so my maid of honor said, gift, what do you think? And my mother was smart. She said to them when they asked her, she'd love a Chip Chadbourne painting. So they made a gift certificate up, and this was back in the early 90s. They made up a gift certificate, and they called him. And when Steve and I were in Maine, I called him. I didn't meet him. I had met him before, but we drove up to Blue Hill, Maine, and we picked out one of his paintings from this gallery way up there. So it's like 14 inches square. Whew. It's just astounding. It's amazing. I'm so thrilled we have it. So
Is it hanging in a pretty prominent place, or is it?
Well, we're repainting things in our house, so it's probably stuck behind a chair at the moment because it came down off the wall. And then this is a future project.
Nice.
Ready? It's in a scrunchie. I don't know why, but so
I can tell you right now. The tattered edges and the tape. I know that this is going to have some serious character, and I'm excited about it.
So one of my brothers still lives in. Well, two of my brothers live in Canton, and one of them we were at his house a few weeks ago, and he gave me this. I can hold it up. So it's a pencil drawing, a charcoal, I guess, of me. Oh, I can hold it over there, whatever. And my this is my brother Jamie, who's the youngest. And we were sitting on the floor, obviously watching TV.
Yep.
So she, so I'm gonna have you guys like mount it and do something to preserve it for me. But
I feel like you should do something and like keep those tattered edges. I feel like that's so much character to
to talk about it. So I mean, but I thought to myself, she had. I mean, this was a traditional family of. We grew up in the '60s, and 5 kids really close together, Irish Catholic family, with dad who worked all the time but didn't do a lot of childcare. And I thought she still made art. Like, how the heck did that ever happen? So she did, and which is really impressive to me. So he found that among his many things, and so I'm gonna. That was, and I kind of said to him, "Don't you want it? It's got you in it." But he has enough, so
he's decided to pass it on.
It's come to me.
Well, Jody, it's been a pleasure having you come in. If anybody wants to see your work, Jody Paints on Instagram.
Jody Paints on Instagram. Yep.
And then the Girls Just Want to Paint, and that's just girlsjustwannapaint.com, or is that?
It's a blog. So if you just look up blog, Girls Just Want to Paint, just wanna with an A, like. Girls just want to have fun kind of thing. And then
that's where that comes from, huh?
I don't know. Like I said, I joined a couple of years later, so I'm not sure where it came from.
You weren't part of the coming up with the name. That's what we got to come up with. Is a name for this series of talking about like the stories behind the paintings. I have like these crazy ideas in my mind, and the story behind it, and like start by like with the painting at the back of it. I don't know. I'm trying to
There's so many clever. I don't know. I mean, I can think too, and you can you don't even have to answer me if I send you ideas.
You can send me whatever you want. We already have our first person lined up after we nail this at my house. We're coming to Jody's house to get the stories behind some of her paintings.
I mean, but I'm totally on board with you. Like art that has a story, and the story can just be where you were when it crossed your path.
And I think that's a great way, and hopefully we inspire some people when they go on vacation, because I've also heard when people are on vacation they spend a little bit freer. That that's a good way from an artist's perspective who sells. That's probably, in thinking about it, it's probably why a lot of places on the Vineyard and Nantucket, I mean, not to mention people are well off over there, but some of these like destinations spots,
and that you might not be there again, and a painting isn't going to gather dust the same way a knick-knack will. And it doesn't take up any shelf space, so
and
I don't have any of that.
and you can get a painting and you have it for life, not like a dinner. Not that going out to dinner isn't a good idea as well.
So you and I sitting here talking about people acquiring original art. I mean, it's not just self-promotional because you are framing and I'm making original art. Before I was an artist, I understood the value of collecting original art. I've never had prints of anything hanging in the house because, I mean, I grew up around it. It feels right to me.
Yeah,
it's
no,
exciting.
And and I think people, this is like part of my whole vision with this, like the website that we're working on and the podcast. I think like just bringing it into people's attention and like having them like realize that buying original art, like anything, you're supporting local artists. Like making things are more beautiful. Like like that.
Yeah, and you buy things that feel right to you.
Yep.
I've never been somebody who knows enough to say I'm going to buy that because it's an investment. I don't want something hanging in my house that I
you
don't like.
You want to lock up? Yeah, no, it's.
So, all right.
Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure having
What
you
a
in.
treat.
And
What a
I
treat.
think
Elizabeth,
I think
great
we
to
went
meet
on
you.
for a while, and I think we
Feel free to-
could probably have you come back. So Jody Regan on the podcast. Girls Just Want to Paint blog, and the Jody Paints on Instagram.
Yeah.
I would highly suggest checking her stuff out. And
You'll see a drawing every day.
I think we'll certainly have something to talk with Jody about down the road, so we'll
All
have
right.
her back. So this is
Dave.
episode 1 with Jody.
Thanks. So
All
great
right.
to chat
Thanks
with
for
you.
listening. See ya!